Alright guys, so 1.10 has me wanting to throw shade at people who previously just ran poise builds and called their build an actual build, but instead of doing that, we're going to move on and be productive today. We're in a better place now than we were with casters, and I think that's because casters have gotten better. The 110 buffed them, people don't want to talk about it, people aren't talking about it, and let's go through a couple of reasons. First of all, poise got nerfed. Indirectly, or directly weapon-wise, but indirectly sort of. That was a big one. However, that buffs a lighter weapon set, meaning casters have more options to shut down passive armor on a regular basis. Now, that said, let's move on to some other interesting stuff. While we're in this place of elevated status from where we were, optimization for casters is still bad, damage-wise. Now, you might think, okay, well, that's kind of crazy coming from you because you post one-shot videos on YouTube all the time of Giant's Flame deleting. Facts. However, it is possible to multi-buff and do absolutely silly damage, as you've seen. Without those buffs, however, Giant's Flame is one of the only things I can think of that even does this sort of lunacy. Now, you'll see people posting combo videos or stuff like this just don't be here, like the 110 Black Flame Tornado combo. But, well, which is just the weapon art catching someone further into our health bar, and then catching the dodge roll at the end. But that's it. Like, you see stuff like that. There's a couple of other combos out there I've seen. Not going to throw them out there. But just, look it up on YouTube. You'll find them. And a lot of the things I have issue with is that these builds are not really caster builds in a lot of cases. Some of them are, but not in the majority. The majority are weapon art focused builds or melee focused builds that have this and then claim it's a spell combo. And some of the other egregious ones, I've just seen some recently, but we'll move on. This leads me to what I qualify as a, air quotes, caster in Elden Ring, or Souls for that matter. You can take this anyway. I'm just going to go through a basic Q&A of this. It sounds kind of silly, I guess, but the format worked well. What do I define as a caster in Elden Ring? A build who prioritizes spells and focus over most other aspects. Now, that's your blue bar and your active equipped spells. Is it acceptable to run low vigor on these builds? No. Less than 50 for any reason, and 50 is still low is a problem. You want as much of this as you can reasonably get. What is the caster tax, some of you may be asking? A high mind stat is the caster tax. 35 to 40 is what I consider minimal for a caster, depending on other factors. That's at rune level 138, for context. That's also with both spell buff talismans. I consider that also a caster tax. Then follow-up question to this, and one that I've been asking myself a lot, is isn't it unfair compared to melee builds? Where's their tax? And to you, theoretical question asker, I will say Endurance, Great Jar Arsenal, and Erdtree 2. The last two are kind of contentious, but I honestly think that's the case. I really think that's your melee tax. Now let's move on. Now that we have defined these, so unfair isn't the word I'd use here. Biased is. Regular movement also takes endurance, no focus, because it's a fundamental part of the game. It'd be absolutely ridiculous to change focus for basic functions. Focus also doesn't refill on its own. You have to save scum or dupe shards to get that feature to work. Even then, it doesn't come back fast. What really matters is the perceived caps and wider import. At max flask, 220 FP is what you'll fill per sip, meaning each blue chug that you have below that is in theory wasted. Meanwhile, your friendly strength build gets 60 vigor, 30 in, and 80 strength, or somewhere around with little issue at roughly the same rune level. Use the caster, or if comparable numbers are used, 80 cast stat, Fate Rand, whatever split you want, 52 vigor and 38 mind for a minimum of what I consider to be the caster tax minimum. Comparatively, you could do the same exact strength build here, but it is not as nearly as punishing on the melee build because the more endurance you have, the better armor you can typically equip, raising your defenses without having to operate on buffs. We'll come back to this. This is where I'm going to say that From needs to help out our Int caster bros. All you sorcerers out there, they got long-range spam, and I guess that's really strong, but they aren't treated half as well as Faith builds or even the melees. Arguably safer, I suppose, but hey, they also have no damage variety, but they can fast swap too that really fits them. All magic or physical with greases. That's it, that's all they got. Faith guys, we got Black Flame if we need it, we got holy, some sort of holy damage, and again, we also have access to the physical greases, etc. Same for everyone else in this list. Strength guys got their big defense and their Chungus weapons. Dex guys got all the specialty stuff, plus you got whips, and run deck, you might as well be running light roll for your endurance input, because you're going to need a lot of it anyway. Some of those weapons are really endurance hungry, especially if you're dual building. Int builds are similar stat-wise, but need a little more variety because they just don't have it. They've got weapons, and they can do cold, they can do all sorts of other stuff, but their main focus and the major thing they have is magic, which is why all the resistance things got nerfed in PvP recently. At least that's my theory. While our blue pals do get the cold status, and I think it's really fun, it's a good status, it's not the diversity they need to contend with the caster tags we discussed. Overall, I think From's done us caster guys a solid with this update, in an indirect, albeit important way. Now, if we can just get some scaling options in the DLC, give the Int Faith guys and the Faith Arcane and Int Arcane guys a way to make regular caster weapons work, like say regular long swords or rapiers, what have you, without getting into crazy numbers on your physical weapons, I think it'll be pretty good. Now, going back to that thing I mentioned about the air quotes defense for the strength build of the caster, at least in the case of Faith. Faith build has, right now, because it's still strong, a Black Flame protection. Now that may change, that might have been an error, that might have been XML things, I think it got changed by like 0.2%, probably should have been far more like 20%, like all the other things got changed. But if not, that means From wants us to have that, which is kind of wild to me, but here we are. And that being the case, use it if you got it. But it does shine kind of light on the Int guys. They're very glass cannon guys. They want that damage. But if they can't get it out for some reason, they're just hosed. They can't swap the holy weapons. They don't have multitudes of other things. They're not going to be able to rely on the physical nearly as much. So, anyway guys, that's kind of what I got. It's a little slapdash, but if y'all want like an in-depth dig in on this with a lot more numbers and stuff like that, just let me know and I'll try it, provided the DLC doesn't come out soon to make this entire thing irrelevant. I will catch you later. Thanks for listening.